Welcome to the Business Unscripted Podcast. We're here to share real-life insights, practical strategies, and the honest lessons that we have learned from our own mistakes because, frankly, we have been in your shoes. So whether you need help with operations, accountability, financial knowledge, sales, or maybe just getting your mindset right, we are here, and this is the right spot for no-fluff conversations and tools that work. So grab your favorite cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. As that good guy said there, grab your favorite cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Business Unscripted Podcast. We are here for episode 55. Pretty crazy that we are here for 55 episodes already. Looking forward to hitting 100. But if you're a business owner, or maybe you're even an aspiring business owner like this young, fine gentleman to my left, you're in the right spot. You know, we talk about things that we've learned through our experiences, things that we've talked with our clients about, and we share them with you so that you maybe don't make the same mistakes that we do sometimes. But with that, welcome to another episode. Dwarn, thank you for joining me again, as always.
Thank you, Dave.
And for those, this fine gentleman to my left who is joining us this week, and he'll also be joining us next week. He is actually, he's my son, my only son. So, you know, I can call him my favorite son because I don't have any other ones. But
we all know I'm your favorite child.
Yeah, you know, I can't admit that on camera. I can't admit anything on camera. But so he's here on spring break, so he wanted to join me. He's been learning some of the ropes about being a business owner. He takes a lot of business classes in high school, so we'll talk through some of that as well with us. But thanks for joining us, buddy. I know it's just, you know, have you ever been on live camera or anything?
I don't think I've ever been on a live camera, but we've done podcasts for school.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Nice, cool. So how many of those have you done?
I think we did 2 in the 8th grade and then 1 freshman year.
Okay, nice. On business, or what was the topics?
2 were on English, and then the other one was on history.
Wow, I could never do any podcasts about either any of those. English, you know, definitely. If autocorrect was not there, I'd be in trouble. But definitely history. But so, well, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. We'll have some good topics today. So, but Dwarren, how about you? What's I know you were unable to join us last week. So, what's been new in your world the last couple of weeks?
Mate, I've been head down, bum up with planning for a new project coming up, and been doing some internal project as well around building out my AI cluster. So I'm excited about that. So more details will come once it's actually a little bit further along, but lots of procurement of hardware at this point.
Yeah.
So this weekend will be a lot of assembly of hardware. So that'll be a bit of fun. I like projects.
Love it. And I think it's one of those things where it's kind of the future, you know, where you figure out these different, you know, ways to add value, add support versus, you know, the old way of just doing it yourself. And plus it also frees up a lot of your time too while continuing to add that value. So how much time have you been putting into it?
Look, probably at least 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, been going into it on top of my regular workload. So yeah, this weekend it's Holy Week here in the Philippines, so pretty much everything's closed. So I'm taking advantage of that. So I'll be doing a little bit of a building spree. So probably going to drop a few 10-hour days in there doing some building, setting up. I've got 10 machines to set up, so it's going to be a little bit busy.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be, you know. It's funny because you say like the localized environments, right? And I actually just had a conversation, met one of the guys from the local area for lunch the other day, and he kind of mentioned that same thing about potentially helping people set up, you know, these localized environments for specific reasons. And it was funny because he was saying, "Well, I'll just set up the machine. I'll just sell them the machine." I question. I said, "Well, why wouldn't you maintain like ownership of the computer and just let them lease it from you, right? And then that way you get this longevity, you get this continuity payment from them, where you know it's everything on the computer, right? Except for maybe the software is his, but then everything else that they create with it is the individuals. And he was like, oh, I never even thought about that. I never even thought about like a leasing subscription model, which so many people don't. They're just like, how do I get this into the hands, sell it for the most that I can, and then they're gone. And then if you think about it, you know, a $2,000 one time, you know, if you just charge somebody $300 a month, you already made your money back, you know, by month 8, 9, and then you get all that extra money in years 2, 3, 4, depending on however long they lease it, as long as you keep the software subscription. So,
Well, the other thing is too, you got the maintenance plan on there and subscription model based, where if anything goes wrong, they can call you,
right.
get assistance, get some maintenance, get, you know, things might change, things might break, and that keeps you in the mix as well. So I totally agree with that. I think that's a much better choice. And if you look at what's happening right now, so Singapore, Australia, US is seeing a shortage since the OpenClaw announcement that they work really well on Mac Minis, that the Mac Mini is pretty much out of stock everywhere. Everyone rushed out as much stock as they could. And now if you look at them, used market is very skint. There's very small amounts on a used market. And when they are, the prices are very, very exaggerated. In some cases, more than what they were selling brand new. One of my clients in Australia decided he wanted to get one. So he was doing a live screen share with me last weekend. I think it was Saturday. And he's like, oh, I'm going to grab one. And there's a 4-week waiting period. And I'm like, oh, really? And he hit a button by mistake and added one setting of 500 gig storage. And suddenly he said one of the stores 25 kilometers away had stock.
Well, yeah, because nobody wants to pay that extra, you know, storage. They want the basic, right? Because you don't really need the storage for it to run like your AI models or your AI automations. You just need it.
Not if you're doing the agent stuff. Yeah. Well, he got lucky. Turns out it was one model. It was a special order that store had put in. He got the unit. He drove all the way down there the next day, picked it up, and was told, yep, that's the only unit we've got. Most people don't go changing the settings, so they don't see the difference pop up. And that was pretty interesting to note that, because every platform that he went on, every online store he went on, is just the stock levels are out. And when we start talking about localized models, you start looking at GPU usage. If you start collecting the correct GPUs to run these systems, you're now competing against gamers. You're now competing against, thankfully, no more competing against miners, because the miners are no longer involved.
Right.
That's one way to look at it.
I mean, I guess that's one way to look at the AI, you know, right. I don't know if you could read that, but Ryan said we're all fucked. You know, pardon our French, but I mean, here's the thing. Is it ever going to turn into Terminator? No, I don't think it's ever going to turn into Terminator, right? I don't know, JD, what do you feel? Do you think we're gonna AI in your age, because you're the one that's gonna have to deal with it? We're gonna be old and decrepit by the time all that comes out. But you know, do they tell you anything and teach you anything about any of this stuff in school?
I mean, at the school I go to, we don't know anything.
No,
it's all blocked on our Chromebooks. We have access to nothing.
Nothing. Wow. What about like, do you guys talk at like, do you like your friend? I know you play a lot of sports and stuff like that, but does anybody like in your friend space talk about like AI and anything? Is there any interest in it right now at your?
I mean, there is like a slight interest in like using it to like help you learn your homework, because like obviously there's some teachers that feel that they should just let you learn it yourself.
Right.
So then you have to like teach it to yourself. And AI does a good job of doing that.
I mean, it does do that when you set it up correctly and you ask it correctly. And it's funny because I actually, Dwayne, what was it, 2 weeks? I think 2 weeks ago, I had mentioned, we were having the conversation that I would say within the next 5 to 10 years. So when Jamie, right, is in school, which is our youngest daughter. So we have like five his age, and then we have a baby. But by the time she's in school, I would say maybe 3rd, 4th grade, I think that there is going to have just AI tutors, right? Right, because then the tutor is customized to that specific child, versus having, you know, one tutor for 5 to 6 children. And so now you can actually, you know, teach them specifically how they need to be taught. and then it learns from them as they continue to communicate with them. So
well,
it'll be interesting.
I think that's an interesting point. And I think when we talked about it last time, one thing that we disagreed on was you could really tailor a AI agent to really be a great tutor or teacher on a specific topic or subject to the individual. And that's where it gets really, really nuanced. And when you start dealing with a lot of teachers, like JJ, you probably have some teachers that are really great on teaching you subject, and then others that are probably not so great on teaching the subject, right? You've got some that'll sit there and get really interactive with you, and others that'll just lecture at you. We all have different ways of learning. And in your class, you probably find people have different ways of absorbing that information. Some are fine with it. Others just go, I just can't learn from this. It's just not an environment that works for me. So I think tailored educational solutions is just, it's impractical in a mass society that in the current education system across the world, not just the US, but anywhere. So when you start incorporating AI as a learning tool, I think it's a really valuable asset. But it's got to be at the point where fundamentals are taught first before they start introducing all the other bits and pieces to it. And it's got to be in a way that it doesn't force the individual learning to be able to cut corners just to get the answers without showing the working. I think because the working is what helps us understand why we got to where we are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure. You know, there's no benefit in just getting the answer, right? You can't cheat.
No, because then you're not learning it.
Right. You're just like, oh, you feel smart in the moment, but then when you come and it actually comes to practical, implications,
if there's like a test,
then
you have no way to get to the answer.
Right.
You can't use AI on a test. So
that's true. So then you end up just you fail.
Failing.
Even though you felt good on the homework, right? And so I guess this is a good lesson too, because it becomes, do you give up that temporary, satisfaction in the moment of making yourself feel good because you got to the right answer by, using assistance. And then when the test comes around or it's game time coming around, right? At that moment, now that's when you really fail because you gave up the actual work to feel that temporary happiness or proudness, whatever it is that you feel in that moment of just getting the answer. And, I think that relates to practice too. Like, sometimes you have to give up, practice is going to be hard. The work's going to be hard. And it's like Gary, Vaynerchuk, I saw a video from him, just temporarily. And it was the only part of the video because I happened to just be, scrolling off of it. And the only thing he said was everything in life that is worth it is hard. Nothing that's worth it is truly easy. Life is hard. Love is hard, right? Being a successful, business owner is hard. Getting good grades is still hard. It's not like easy. Being successful in sports, right? Hitting a baseball or whatever it is that you want to do, right? It's all going to be hard. And so do you give up the hard part because you want to feel good and not do practice versus game time, and that's where it really comes out, right? We've had on the podcast, we've talked about the mirror moment. We've had the mirror moment conversation, over dinner, about how, ultimately I'm always going to be proud of you. So it doesn't matter about me being proud of you, right? By you telling me something. And it comes down to, you have to feel proud of yourself. You have to feel proud of yourself as a business owner with the efforts that you did during the day. And that comes down to that mirror moment of looking yourself in the mirror and saying, am I proud with what I did today? Did I do the work I needed to do today? Did I practice as hard as I needed to practice today? And so that's where it all becomes worth it. That's where the outcomes are going to match the effort. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And then same thing in business. To Dorn. So
yeah, I mean, like I heard something. It was just today or yesterday. I can't recall now, but it went along the lines of people are going to judge you, and people are going to, be jealous of the things that you have and the things that you've achieved.
Yeah.
But they'll never be jealous of the journey that it took you to get them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like when you sit back and just take a moment to think about that. I mean, you're in sports, JJ, right? How many early mornings, late practices, muscle pains that you can't describe, and still you had to go to school and then go to practice afterwards, and then still turn up on the weekend to play. but it was all worth it because it got you to the end point. All those people who are watching from the stadium, all they're seeing from the grandstand that you're just, had a great game, that you've won that game. They're not looking at the fact of all that work that went in there. And I think one of the great examples of that was, I think, was it Kobe or one of the ballers was out there saying he shoots, 1,000 shots a day, every day, just to get as good as he ever could. So he would stay back and he would do more than anyone else, and when he was playing. And this is what it takes to be great, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in, sport. I mean, you've got to.
You read, well, you were reading, right, Kobe's book, because I got it for you the one Christmas, remember? Or was that Derek Jeter? That might have been Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter.
Yeah. But same method. I mean, I'm sure in his book he said the same thing, right?
Yeah, he said he goes out because he lived up in Michigan, and there was a baseball field right behind his house. He said he cut a hole in the bottom of the fence to sneak on the field to get practicing every day.
Really?
Yeah. Nice.
And I remember hearing, you mentioned Kobe, right, Warren? Hearing these stories from the other professional athletes of him when they were on the Olympic team together. And these other professional athletes that are thinking they're going there and it's going to be, kind of this, we're going to run over the world or whatever. And then practice comes around and Kobe's the first one in there, even though he's probably one of the best on the team. And then he's the last one to leave. And then everybody's like, well, man, what are you doing? Why are you up so early? Why are you getting in here so early? He's like, because it's the game, right? We got to work. And then by the end of it, it completely changed the work ethic of every person that was on that team because they saw one of the greatest doing it and they wanted to emulate it, right? And so it's so easy to fall into oh, I'm good. But are you? Really, it's emulate the people that you want to be like and then do those same things. And eventually, if you put in all that work and you do all that, it'll happen as long as you're, consistent with the effort, right?
Yeah.
So, and that happens in business a lot too, man. Good leadership, those guys don't rock in 10, 15 minutes late, right? They're there. They do it. They turn up on time or they turn up early. They get the work done. They make sure everyone else is getting their work done before they leave. They don't go leaving early with everyone else in the trenches.
Yeah, there's definitely the good and bad leadership, right? There's the good leaders and bad leaders that will show up early, stay late. But it's all what are they doing with their time when they're doing it? The bad leaders are the ones that are micromanaging. They're staying late because they want to know who was the last one to leave and who left early, right? And they get in early because they want to see who's the last one to get here. That's the bad leaders. You're not a good leader just because you show up early and leave late, right? But there's also great leaders because they're busy. They're out at meetings they're not in the office all the time. But they're good leaders because when they are there, they're paying attention. Right? They're engaging, they're supporting their staff. That's the biggest thing that good leaders do, even if they're not there all the time. And so that's the same thing, with you, right? In the team, you show up, you're not in the starting lineup all the time, right? So what are you doing when you're not?
When I'm not in the starting lineup, you're just making sure everybody's ready for the game. Everybody's got what they need.
Yep.
They all got filled water bottles.
And during the game, what are you doing?
Hyping everybody up.
Right. He's got a distinct voice. So when he's on the sideline, you could totally, kind of hear him over everybody else sometimes. And so that's, I think, one good sign of a good leader is that even when it's not your turn, even when it's not your time, you're still there to support and cheer everybody on. Because it's like Warren, it's not always going to be your time. It's not always going to be my time. It's not going to be, you guys watching this time. But how do you react to other people? And I'm saying this from experience because this was, I would say, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Me, if I would see somebody else succeed, it pissed me off. Right. And I'm not proud of that because ultimately, these were people that were either friends or these were people that were acquaintances from high school. But it pissed me off because I'm like, why not me? You know what I mean? And at that moment, I was still 27. So I was definitely still young. And I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know the effort that needed to be put in. I just thought that, you did good things will happen. No, you have to
show
do
up.
Things.
That's what you have to do, right?
Yeah,
show up, get better.
Right?
Everything else is just awesome.
Right. And so, but now like that mindset shift for me has been like, I revel in all of their successes too, because I know that by supporting, by growing together, in the end, it's all going to come around, And so now I'm starting to see some of that, in our, right, what we're doing here, things are growing, things are doing well. But so, I mean, that's one of the lessons that hopefully you don't get from me. Hopefully you don't sit out when you are on the bench and you're looking at the, the starting catcher or whatever, you're not there like, why is he getting to play, right? Versus me, right? You're there because you're cheering him on, it's going to come to you, right? And then you work your ass off in practice.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you that all the time, right? I tell you, you're gonna earn your spot in practice, or earn the playing time in practice by being the first one there, being the last one there, off the field, and not in a bad way, in a good way, like we were just talking about, like as leadership. You're cheering people on, you're helping out. But I think the biggest thing, that I think, and maybe this is one of your like out of your comfort zone moments, right? Would be asking for the extra help.
Like after practices,
yeah,
practices,
right? Like, am I wrong in that assumption, or is that something?
I mean, a little bit for like the before practices, but I've started asking Coach Mudd to throw me pitches after practices and stuff.
But for the longest time, you were shy. He was a shy guy.
Oh yeah,
shy. So
couldn't talk to anybody.
Was it that way because you felt like you were being an inconvenience, or why do you feel like you didn't want to ask when you were a little bit younger?
It was probably because I didn't want like to take time out of somebody else's day to help me get better.
So you felt you felt like you were kind of being an inconvenience to them because they would have to take time out of their day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's normal.
Yeah. It's very normal in the workplace that as well. Like, feeling like your time is not as valuable as somebody else's, and if you ask for help, then you're going to be a hindrance to them, which is not the case in a lot of cases. A lot of good leaders and even other people in your team actually like being mentors and trainers and help people. They like it when they get to teach new skills and help people be better. And same thing with sports, right? I mean, unless you've got a huge ego, I mean, then obviously it's something different. But, the majority of people are good people. They want to help other people succeed. They want to help bring everyone
up. One of
the
things I heard the most is, as rich, successful people get older, they want to teach. They want to leave that legacy. And I think it's so many people have that feeling like, well, they're rich, they don't have time for me, I don't want to ask, I don't want to. And for me, as I'm getting older, right, you make fun of me all the time for this,
old man,
right? I'm an old man. But as I'm getting older, and that's what I want to do, try to, right, share, educate, especially your age, especially because you guys have the opportunity right now to not maybe do what I did in my life. And don't get me wrong, what I did led to you. So I'm happy that you're here. But again, I didn't know, like in my 20s, I didn't grind. I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was looking for the quick fix, as we just kind of talked about. So I didn't put in that effort in my 20s to set up the rest of my life. And now it's me grinding in my 40s to make that happen. But I am happy because, I was able to still, there's moments, right? It's kind of your trade-off, to be around for the kid, to be around for you, right? Even though, your mom and I are not together, but I was always there. At least I hope you felt that I was always there, that kind of thing. But for you, I think you can decide how you want, like, you want to like really put in the effort when you're in your 20s, and then when you're in your 30s and 40s and your 50s, and when you're on your own, because I'm not longer here. But then you have all those fruits of your efforts. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I love teaching. I love sharing. I'm never going to turn anybody down, to share some experiences and give some insights. And I think that's the biggest thing. So if, like, for you, never be like, when you get into the workplace, right, and there's like a boss or a leader or a coach when you go to college and you're playing baseball, like, they're in that role because they want to help people grow. right? The coaches at college, they want you to grow. They have you on the team. They accepted you on the team. So they want you to be the best version of yourself on that team. And so asking for, some time after or extra practice, like at early in the morning or wherever it is, that's their whole goal of being in that role with that team, is to help you be a better man, grow it, in your skills, but, especially in college, hopefully, right, grow as a human, because I'm not going to be there. I can't be there. They're the one, you're going to have more interaction with them probably than me when you're at college. So don't be afraid to pick their brain, to ask for the time, all that, So do you feel like you've gotten over that? Or is it still something
a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, but you still feel like it's a little something that is holding you back for sometimes?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It also depends on what time the practice is.
True. So you mean like if it's a later practice, you don't want to do it?
I probably wouldn't, just because you never know what that person's doing after.
Yeah. Well, that's why you do it ahead of time too. So
sometimes you just throw it out there too, right? And just, rejection is something you need to get used to in life as well. So throwing it out there and then someone actually saying no is not a bad thing either, because that'll help you get used to question, because you should be able to say no as well as anyone else if you've got other things going on, and that's fine. But you never know unless you ask. And I think that's a big thing that I've learned in business and life, is that sometimes you just got to ask the question. It's not always going to be what you want to hear. It's not always going to be a yes, but in a lot of cases, you'll surprise yourself. Because for every person that does ask, there's going to be 9 others that don't ask.
Yeah. Yep. And you said something too earlier, and I want to kind of come back to, because it does relate to business and, owners and your value. And it's because you value their time more than your own. And maybe not you. Well, and you were young, so I'm not even talking about you, but business owners specifically, when you're afraid to like raise your prices, or you're afraid to ask for the sale, it's because you feel in that moment that their money is more valuable to them than the benefit that you can provide them. And so it's really important for you to truly believe in your worth, your value, and your price. That once you do that and you have that confidence when you're having those conversations, it's going to shine through, and people are going to know exactly what they're getting, and they're going to feel confident investing in you to help them grow. And so it's really important for you to learn that and believe it, because if you try to tell somebody, yeah, it's going to be 10,000, I don't know, maybe I can give you a discount or something, like immediately, what is that? Like, if how do you feel if somebody were to say that, right? If somebody were to come up to you and they tell you, oh, this lesson's going to be $2,000, but I don't know, maybe I'll charge you $1,500. Like, do you feel it's worth more? Or do you feel it's worth less because they're immediately discounted?
Immediately, you think it's worth less.
Right.
You got to stick with your high price and make them feel that that's the lowest price that they can go, because that's the value of what they're giving.
Right. Exactly. And one of the other things that I've been recently starting to kind of incorporate more as well is when people ask for pricing, well, one, if it's early in the conversation, I'll be like, it's expensive. And it's probably more than you've been paying already, because I know it probably is. But if you still want to have the conversation, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you, see if it's the right solution for you. Otherwise, I can respect your decision to, kind of want to move forward. And here, because expensive to you and I, Dwarn, is different than expensive to JJ or expensive to anybody else. And so when you say that, you're setting the expectation. And then when you finally do get to the price, and you finally have had that conversation, and you finally added the value to their, to their day by giving them some sort of insights, by the time you get to that pricing discussion and then you tell them the price, more often than not, your price is way under what they were thinking is expensive. And so
you set an expectation what the value proposition is. So by the time you get to the price, it's not the price that's in question at that point. It's whether or not it's the right fit for them at that time. It's the old adage of, if you got someone who comes in and just wants to get a price right from the beginning, wants a quote, but wants to know how much it's going to cost, but doesn't want to know or share enough information for you to be able to understand what they want to achieve to quote them correctly, they're probably not the right customer. So they're probably better off jogging on and finding someone else who's willing to do it, because they may come back in 6 months and say, hey, that didn't work out. And that's when your opportunity to say, well, look, can I ask you some questions this time? Let's work out what you need. And we see this a lot in the marketing industry, in the branding, where we get a lot of people come over, take the cheapest quote, come back and say, it didn't work. It's like, well, what'd you do? Well, we did this. It's like, well, why would you do that? That's not even on target for what you're going to be, for the market you're trying to go after. Well, that's what I thought I needed. So, okay. Were you advised to do that, or is that what you told them you wanted? Well, that's what I told them. Okay. Well, if you were asked, I would have advised you do this instead. Did you ask them to advise you, or did you tell them what you wanted done and they quote you? They just quoted me. So it becomes a very different conversation. And those businesses that just do that quick quote, get the business out, they're not qualifying. They're not finding out if it's the right customer. They're not making sure it's the right solution or the service. And you are going to get high turnover. You are going to have problems because they don't see a value, and you can't charge for the value that you offer at that point either.
Well, and it does come down to, if you're just doing exactly what the client wants, there is not a lot of value there, right? Because all those types of agencies are a dime a dozen. But when you add in the advisory, you add in that extra layer, now that's where you begin to kind of set yourself apart from others in the arena. And that's where you can begin to kind of charge those higher pricing when you do that. But so many people, as a business owner, you want to make sure that you have two things. And I kind of said this in a short the other day, and I told you about this, right? Where it's like, and I spilled the coffee in the morning, could have let it ruin my day, but I didn't. But it turned into, a good situation, because I was able to then, record a video, record it in a impact on it. And then Dwar and I shared the analogy, right, that you shared the other week, or I don't know, a few episodes ago, about the $1,400. Yeah. Where, if you lose $1, or, something, somebody steals $1 from you or whatever it is, are you going to burn and ruin the other $1,399 in your pocket? No, like nobody's going to, I asked JJ that the question, what was your answer?
Dude, there's no reason.
You're like, why would you do that? It's $1,300. Yeah. And then I said, that's the number of minutes that you have in the day. And you didn't even realize that at first. You're like, that really? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, what we talked about, Dwarren, why, if you lose a minute, or if a minute doesn't go your way, or you got rejected, or you struck out, right? Or you made an error, why would you ruin the other 1,399 minutes that you have in the next 20, that 24 hours leading up to it, right? And I know you've done it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I think we've all done it.
Yes.
I think
we've all done it. And so for you, like, you can now remember that, right? The next time you're up at bat, like, you strike out, who cares, man? Like, I'm gonna have the rest of this game to make up for it, and I remember when you were younger, you would just store, like, if something didn't go your way, you guys lost the game, you would walk by, but just not even say hello or anything to me and his mom and his stepdad, and you would just walk right to the car and you'd be pissed off, right? And so now it's a good analogy. But the thing is, what I added to that after that was, those are your two most valuable resources as a human and as a business owner, right? Money and time. One of those is infinite right now, right? You can always make more of, and the other one is not. Once it's gone, it's gone. But yet everybody's so protective of the one that's infinite, and is nilly-willy with the one that is limited, and that's their time. Because they're so easy to just throw away time. They're so easy to just get angry and let everything go by, when in reality it should be the opposite, right? You should be so protective of your time and how you're acting and how you're feeling and everything every day, versus always knowing that I'll get money back. Like, it's going to come. It may be a little, peak or a valley right now, but I know there's always going to be peaks and valleys. If you look at a chart of success, it's not straight up. No, it's like twisting, turning up and down. And then, sometimes it goes a lot lower, but then it goes straight back up. So money's the infinite resource, essentially. It may be limited right now, but there's infinite of it out there for you to gain and gather as long as you're going to be providing something of value. Whereas your time, that's the one that you can never make more of. You can't get it back once you spend it. And so how are you going to spend it? You're going to spend it mad. You're going to spend it angry. You're going to spend it wishing something happened differently than it did, because you can't change that either. So, and that's ultimately what it comes down to is time is your finite resource. Respect that. Remind yourself of that. So hopefully that's something good that came out of spring break, is that you can use that lesson moving forward. But I wanted to kind of share that, kind of with us. But so I want to take a pause real quick. So for those of you, if you're watching, you're joining us, my son JJ's here. He's on spring break. So he's here with me. He'll be here next week as well. So we'll have him joining us one more episode. But if you have questions too, anything that we're talking about, whether it's business, life, anything, feel free to drop it in the comments. It looks like this guy, not Brawler Stars, has what y'all doing? We're chatting business. We're chatting life. What about you? What are you doing? What's up, brother? Looks like. So drop a question, anything. If you're a business owner, aspiring business owner, drop a question. Dwan had mentioned as well that he's working on some interesting stuff that hopefully he'll share with us soon. I mentioned last week that there is the Triumph Intelligence platform that I am working on. I'm going to drop. There's a link right here. It's open right now for beta, and so for beta test, there's only 10 spots open, and it's there's I think now over 20 some tools in there as a business owner, from generating a cash flow assessment, to developing policies and procedures in your business, to creating offers, to pricing, agreement, proposals, HR document. There's tons of stuff, tools. Go check out this website there, triumphbusinesssolutions.pro/tip/beta. It's only open to the first 10 people. And the idea is that we want to get some feedback how things are going. And then you get to lock in that beta pricing for 6 months after we go live as well. So if you're interested in it, go check that out. It'll also be down below in the comments after the show, or you can send us a message if you're interested. But JJ here, to kind of jump back in, I was kind of teaching him yesterday in Go High Level some automation, and it's one of those things where it's funny because you need the support, but then when somebody kind of comes in, it's like, all right, where do you want to start? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, there's so much stuff to do. Let's see what's easy that I can train him on. And so what did you think of that experience in terms of like getting into Go High Level the first time and going through the setup and the email automation and all of that? How did you feel about that?
Like, was it like to me, like, was it like easy or hard, or?
Yeah, was it easy? Do you kind of see the benefit of it? Because you know that it's going to be going out to people to help onboard. But what was your initial first experience, first thoughts of your first day working kind of in business?
Well, before we started, I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was to set all that up. Because you said automations, and I was thinking there was going to have to be like coding into it, and it's all you had to do was fill out this workflow and then put the emails in there, and then it was pretty easy on that part.
Right.
And then I feel like overall it was pretty like self-centered and easy. Like it was straight to the point onto it.
Right. And I think the other piece to kind of pay attention to is that he's in high school, he's not even in business, and this is something that could potentially help anybody, right? A business owner. I had him working on it because it's something I knew I had to do in terms of setup for some of these platforms we're about to launch. But it's a long-term benefit, because once you set it up, obviously you're going to kind of update maybe the copy or things like that. But that workflow's there, right? And then I was impressed because I thought it was going to take you a lot longer than the first one did. I was like, oh crap, now what do I got to do? And so then I set you up with another one, or two other ones actually, and then you were kind of working on that in the afternoon. But Dwarren is actually, him and his company, they're the ones that have that white label of Go High Level. But there's just so much out there, you know what I mean, to learn, right, Dwarren? Like there's just so much.
Oh, there is. I mean, like, and then there's always feature drops. Like today, there was a drop of a feature. There's now a live chat function, so you can do live chat widget embedded into a website. There's the AI Studio that just got released, so you can build out a full website using the AI Studio now by prompting, which is kind of clever. Mixed results on that, most of them positive. So, I mean, we're talking about it. It changes all the time, and that's the industry in general at the moment when it comes to software automation, AI. It's really, really flexing and changing a lot. So when you can get a piece of software like you've put together here with Business Triumph Intelligence, where you can do a lot of these little things that you normally have to do across multiple platforms, and then train it up on how to do that in your business, and then train team members up on how to do it. It makes for good business sense to have a tool that you can do that sort of thing with. So I think these sort of tools are clever. Go High Level, it's another clever tool for marketing. There's a lot of these different all-in-one tools out there at the moment, and whichever one you choose, you're going to be in for a world of hurt trying to get your head around it. But like JJ just said, it's not about learning how to code. It's just learning how the system flows. Once you understand the basics, it actually is a lot easier than you might have thought in the first place.
What was like your first impression, I guess, like walking away from the day, besides that it wasn't as hard as you thought it was going to be, but what was something maybe that you picked up during the day that you didn't think about, let's say that I did, when I tell you that I own a business? What did anything stand out where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that?
Probably like the amount of like I'm not good with words.
No, you're fine.
Take your time.
Probably that, like, I wouldn't have thought like that it's as simple to, like, I don't know what word I'm trying to look for.
Like simple to the processes, you mean?
Yeah.
Like actually just lining them up, but
yeah,
having a good understanding of what all those processes need to be.
Yeah.
Is probably, you didn't realize there were so many different processes, even though they're simple.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was like one process that just went all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like you have to set up all these different things to do certain things.
Yep.
Never would have thought that.
Yeah. So because it was right there's it's funny because I've learned even more of this too, right, Jordan? Like working with you and then going through some of these campaigns for some of our clients. When you set up even a simple survey page, what the workflows are that go into that. You would just think, oh, I'm going to create a survey and then I'm going to create an email automation. That's it. But it's not, right? You got to create survey, then you got to create a scoring logic with a routing, campaign. And then from there it goes, yes. And then from there, it's like, okay, then if they, go here and then you do your emails based on their score. And then once they click the calendar to maybe book a call for a next step, now you have a calendar invitation automation that once they book the calendar meeting, it takes them out of the invitation meeting, campaign. And so you have all these different flows from one survey. I think that's the part that can feel overwhelming, right? Because a lot of business owners, they don't realize that. They just think, hey, I'm just going to build one campaign and they go from there.
Oh, that's it, right? I mean, how many times I've been on a call and it's like, just set me up a funnel. And it's like, well, what do you consider a funnel?
Right.
Because what I consider a funnel is like a web funnel with a very specific set of steps that we want to take people through to get them through the other end. But there's this consistent understanding in the business world that a funnel in marketing is that front end plus all the emails that go in the back end plus the pipeline generation build out plus getting the people in and booking those meetings and so on and so on, and then putting them into a nurture sequence, which sends them out an email or an SMS at regular intervals, and then automatically have a task go in and chase somebody up internally to call them and check in with them occasionally. And it's like, well, okay, that's a huge process, and that's a lot of logic to go through and think through. Somebody's got to come up with that plan. And this is where being the strategist can sometimes outweigh the importance of actually doing the physical setup initially. So it's an interesting point that JJ makes, that there's a lot more went into it than he considered. Like, JJ, one of the things that I think probably a lot of people don't realize when they're setting up an automation is you can put things like a wait time, like wait 1 day, wait 2 days before the next step. Making sure that, you know, you only send out messages between certain times of Monday to Friday, for example. Yeah. All these considerations, you're going, whoa, well, I would never have considered that as being something that would be considered. But then when you start to take those little steps into consideration, a simple process becomes a very complex, logical process that makes a lot of sense, but there's a lot of steps. And when Dave and I talk about it, it's just common for us. It's normal for us. So it's not until we get, you know, fresh young minds like yourself come in and look at it from a different perspective, and we go, oh yeah, we were like that once. Yeah, that we had to figure this out too.
Well, and with that too, like there's still, even for me, when I get into it, there's still some like, oh wait, we should build that into another campaign, you know, where it didn't come up in the thought process initially. And that's where it's, and I make the suggestion to everybody, whether it's your customer journey or you're building out like automations like this, is you always want to start with the plan. Map it out, talk it through, write it out into like a mind map or a flow, because that's going to help you identify where the breakdowns may occur, you know? And then additionally, you want to limit the potential fall off points for any prospect as well. So it's just balance. And it kind of goes into like a platform or a program software too, right? It's a balance of how much do you build into it that you think it needs versus what's the minimum viable, you know, product that your prospect wants at this moment. And then you can add on to that after that and test it. And the steps, you know, the one thing everybody needs to think, you know, walk through is how many button clicks does it take for somebody to get in touch with you?
Yeah.
And if it's more than 3, it's too many, you know? And so that's something to also be considered, you know, through all of this. So there's a lot that there's to learn, you know what I mean? So
that's a good point. It's about when you create these systems, it's very easy to be selfish and think about it from a company perspective or your own business perspective. But it doesn't matter what you want or like necessarily. What matters is the customer journey and how the person you're actually targeting this for is going to feel about it. If they're going to sit there and have a terrible time, then it ain't going to work. And like if we put this into a sports analogy, the banana ball, you know, like these guys took a game which was already successful and turned it into something even more successful for a different crowd, for a crowd that, you know, now loves. They got followers, and it's an amazing, you know, it's an amazing event. They're booked out tours all over the place, right? So you can build something really, really amazing, or you can build something that is just functional and works. It really comes down to who are you trying to target and what sort of experience you want to give them at the end of the day. And it's so much more than just sending an email, which is like when you started, you'll probably automate. Oh yeah, well, we're just going to automate a couple of emails. Cool. Yeah, that sounds all right. Then you start getting into it and you go, oh, there's a lot more to do here. Like setting a tag and telling you that this email was sent so that anyone checking that person in the CRM can actually see that it actually where they're up to. There's a lot more to this sort of stuff. And from a business owner perspective, you don't need to know all the details, but it's good to know that it was set up properly with all the details if you ever need to check it.
Right. For sure. So, JJ, for you, I know there's a lot of things you're in marketing right now, right? Marketing class.
Sports entertainment marketing.
Sports
I did
entertainment.
marketing last year.
What business questions do you have, right? That you're like, man, either the teacher didn't go over it well, or something that like piqued your interest that you want to kind of talk to Dwarn and I about, or is
I know
there?
something you've brought up a lot that comes with like business is the ROI,
Mhm.
return on your
Mhm.
investment. And I know we've kind of briefed over it in class, but we didn't really talk about it.
Right.
I want to learn like really more like what that means.
Right. What does return on investment mean?
Yeah, like what does that actually like mean?
Yeah. Dwarn, do you want to hit that, or you want me to touch that one?
Yeah, I can hit it. I can start with
Yeah.
that. So if we look at it from the simplest point of view, whatever you spend, how much of a return are you going to get on it? So if you start looking at, let's say for me with outsourcing staffing from the Philippines to companies in the US and Australia, if I pay $1,000 salary to the staff member and I'm out there marketing that service and I'm selling that to my clients for $1,500 a month, then how many of those services do I have to sell in order to get my return on investment if I'm going to go out and do marketing, for example? So if I'm going to spend $2,000 on marketing, I have to sell 4 just to be able to cover the cost of that marketing. So my return on investment would be very, very low. I'd need to sell 5, 10 or more to make it worthwhile, because you've got a cost of doing business, and whatever you're going to be spending to get more business, you've got to make sure that it's actually of a profit. And I've been in companies before where they've took on a new client thinking it's going to be really good return on investment for them, and only to find they've had to hire more staff, which means they had higher costs, which meant they weren't able to get as much of a return as they were initially expecting. And that comes down to not working out what your real cost is. And that's something that your dad's really good at. That's something Dave's awesome at, helping businesses work out what their real cost of things are. Like, we had that conversation 12 months ago, and then I went away and did a little bit of spreadsheet work, and I came back going, well, that's a little scary. My margins aren't as high as I thought they were.
Right.
And that's the realization as a business owner, when you say, I need to get a better return on investment for every dollar I spend, I need to make sure I'm making more money to cover all the expense of the business, all my marketing in the business, everything. And I'm sure, Dave, you've got an even better explanation than that, but that's how I look at it from my layman point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely hit on the main points, right? And I think the biggest thing is it really depends on what you're looking to invest in, on what that target ROI is. So if you're a real estate person and you're trying to invest a good real estate project, your ROI may be looking at something around 15 to 25% as your min. Where if you put in 100,000, you're looking to get back like 115 to 125, right? And so you basically take whatever you're expected to get back minus the cost of making that happen, and then you divide that gain by the cost, and then that gives you your return on investment. Whereas in marketing, in your advertising spend, as Dwarn was saying, you typically want to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 times ROI. And when business owners do this calculation, a lot of them do it wrong, because, as Dwarn was just saying, they focus on the top line number, and then they try to figure it out based on the top line, not factoring in what are all my direct costs related to make that new money happen. And really what should happen is, when you look at your return on investment, you should look at gross profit return on investment, because that's the money that the agency gets to keep. And if they're already profitable, that's the money that's going to go directly to their bottom line, because they're already paying for all their operating expenses through the other business that they already have. So, for example, if you spend $1,000 on marketing and you have let's just say a 50% gross profit margin, right? If you sell $5,000 and you're targeting a 500% or 400 to 500% ROI, you would think, I have that, right? 5,000 of new revenue minus $1,000 in marketing. I just made $4,000. There's my 4 times. But in reality, they only made 2,500 because they have a 50% gross margin. So you take the money that they had coming in, the 5,000 times 50%, now they only have $2,500 of gross profit. Divide that by the 1,000, right? And now it's only 250%. So they're still lower than their goal. It's still not bad, right? It's not, I would pretty much all the time spend 1,000 to make 2,500. But if their target is 400, they're not reaching their target. So their pricing needs to either be adjusted or they need to reduce their advertising spend if they need to be at a 400% ROI. And so that's where a lot of people, they just think, oh, I need an ROI. They think if I get a 5% or a 10% ROI, I'm fine. But in reality, it doesn't happen that way. And I think the thing that they're not going to teach is that with ROI, it's long-term, right? You have to think at least 12 months. Because if you're looking at a short-term ROI, a lot of times there's going to be a dip in productivity, a dip in expectations. So your immediate ROI, maybe in the first 60 days, is not going to be as high as it will be after you've kind of flushed out all the issues. So like when you first start running ads or you first start doing anything like that, you're going to have a lower ROI than if you let it run for 3 or 4 or 6 months or even 12 months. So. But hopefully, did that answer your question on?
Yeah.
Okay, ROI. So
I got one more example there too, Dave. Right at the beginning of this podcast, we talked about the localized AI system and the option of putting that up front and or putting it on a monthly recurring. I mean, that's a great example of an increased ROI right there. So if you were to sell that product at $2,000 as opposed to charging $200 or $250 a month on a 24-month contract, you've got a much higher return on investment on that particular product, even though you'd be putting out a little bit more initially because you'd be covering the cost of your labor, the setup, the implementation, and possibly the hardware. But over that contracted period, it's worth a lot more. And this is where a lot of people tend to look at the quick win, the quick gain, the quick return on investment versus the long term. And from a lot of business perspectives, you've got to look at it from how much do I need in the bank right now to keep the business running versus if I build up this portfolio of monthly recurring or annual recurring revenue, what will that look like for me in 12 months? And normally you'll find that the short wins are going to look good on paper initially, but you eventually want to get to that monthly recurring to get a higher return on investment for the time and effort you're spending.
Any follow-up to that? Anything that
any other questions?
And like ROI, do we feel like we answered it?
I think you guys answered it again. Yeah.
How about any other business questions? I know you're going into what, accounting and what
next year? I'm taking either accounting or entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Just the two that I picked.
Nice.
I pick one.
You need to basically they choose which one they're going to give you.
I'll give them my two highest, my two electives that I want to have. They're both a year, so they said if one class is full, they'll put me another one.
Yeah.
If the one isn't, I'll go another one.
Okay. Any other kind of business questions that have been brought up or that you've thought about it going through these classes in high school?
Not that I can think of at this time.
No. Good. Well, we're about an hour, which is where we kind of like to be. So I think we've kind of chatted a lot. I think we've dropped a lot of golden nuggets in this episode, so hopefully something stood out to you. Dwarn, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of cover, or otherwise, what's one thing that you want somebody to take away from today?
Yeah, look, I have a question for JJ before we finish up.
Yeah, go ahead.
From a business perspective, is there any ideas that you've been thinking about? Like this would be a nice little business opportunity or a business model that you'd like to look into in the future?
If I were to start a business?
Yeah, is that something you've considered? What sort of business you'd like to set yourself up for in the future, or if that's something you've looked into already?
Probably something to do with sports in some sort of way. Whether that's equipment or some sort of sports agency or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, I like that series Ballers with Dwayne Johnson. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
That's pretty intense. That's all. That sport agents seem to have the lifestyle by the looks of it. Definitely a lot of
Yeah.
On a serious
There's
note,
a lot of schmoozing going on there, right?
that's right.
But
But
did you
that's
ever watch
really-
that episode? Did you ever watch that show, Ballers, on HBO Max or whatever?
I think
Yeah.
I've watched a little bit of it.
Like a little bit of it. Maybe we'll have to watch it.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
intense.
think I got through like the first couple seasons, and then it went on pause, and I never picked it back up. But
Yeah,
I definitely want to. It was a good show. I liked it. So
it was interesting. It kind of reminded me of the first time I watched Wall Street, and I was like, "Oh, I'd love to be like a broker. Yeah, that'd be so cool." And then I had that same sort of feeling. I was like, "This would be a really cool career. I think it'd be fun." And the reality is like, no, it wouldn't be.
It's definitely harder than you would think, right?
But that's really cool. So sports related, I like it. I think one of the things that's important when you go into business, and that's interesting to hear you say that, is you've got to have a passion, a grounding passion for what you're in business about.
Right.
And if you don't have that, if you're just going into business because you think it's a good idea and you don't have that level of passion, those days that you don't want to get out of bed, they're going to really, really, really hurt. So, and there's going to be a lot of those days. There's going to be a lot of those moments during business where you go, why am I doing this? Why don't I just go and get a real job and just get paid and not have all this stress?
Right.
But when you got that passion, that gives you that extra drive just to keep pushing forward and remind yourself, I'm doing this because this is what I want to do. This is what I love to do.
I agree.
So
I agree.
cool.
That's a good. That's a good good point. Good way to end it. Is there anything else you hope that somebody walks away with today, anymore?
Yeah, you're never too young to start a conversation in business. You're never too young to realize that a lot of conversations and things you learn in business are going to translate into real life events. So if you've got teenage children, maybe start the conversation and just let them know a little bit about what you're actually doing, because you may be surprised. Maybe they're a little bit more engaged and interested than you thought they might be.
For sure. Love it. JJ, how about you? We like to end all of the episodes with like a takeaway from the show that we hope they listen to. So how about you? What's one thing that you hope somebody walks away with today?
Come back to me.
Come back to
You go first. Let me think about it. I know you're gonna ask me that.
Oh, yeah. I just like to throw it out there. So it's the first thing that comes to mind. Whatever first thing.
Dad, you put me on the spot.
Yeah, right. You put me on the spot, buddy. I would say for me, one, you have to believe in yourself, as we talked about. And I saw this and I wanted to bring it up and I forgot about it, but I could bring it up now. It was, I think it was on LinkedIn, but it was about an old Chinese proverb, and it states that as soon as you know you got on the wrong train, get off at the next station, because if you keep going, the return trip's going to be more expensive. And that speaks to life, to everything, right? If you know you're on the wrong path, you're not doing what you enjoy, you're at the wrong company, right? Anything, you're in the wrong relationship, get off as soon as you can. Otherwise, the longer you stay on that train, the more expensive it is going to be to get back to where you need to be. And so that's how I think I want to end for me. And the lesson for you all is, you may not be in the right job. You might not be in the right business. You may be feeling like you're tugged in another direction. Don't wait. Don't wait. You got to make that leap. And now is the time to make that leap. So hopefully this is something that'll push somebody towards that. But now it's on you, buddy.
Okay,
I got no more time. It's you.
It's gonna sound like I'm copying what the Warren said.
Okay.
But from like the teenager perspective, I feel like there's a lot of us that really want to go into business and think that their parents aren't going to support them because they don't think that their parents are going to agree with what they're thinking about.
Yep.
I know a lot of people at my school even just talk about starting small businesses, and then they're like, oh, I'm not going to do it because my parents don't think I should, or they aren't going to support me through it. like you have to be able to talk with your parents about it, and then they have to be able to support their kids through starting it.
Well, I'm gonna add the extra layer to that, and this is gonna be a really hard for some of you listening, and it's real advice that you should probably share, right? And sorry, but fuck what other people think, right? And here's why, right? You are always in your life going to have people that aren't going to believe in what you want or think that you're doing the right decision. Who cares? Because ultimately, it's your life. It's not theirs. Now, granted, if they're life savings, all this kind of stuff, I get it. But parents aren't there to try to force their feelings and their life choices onto their kids. They're there to guide them and point them and talk to them, but ultimately, it's your decision. I'm not, and Dwarren, we've talked about this on other episodes.
Yeah.
I am not going to force you one way or another. I may give you a insight on, hey, I think maybe you should consider this. And if you don't do it, that's your choice. But the biggest thing that I think you can, if you're a teenager and you're listening to this, I'm sure this will be a clip. JJ, you can share it with your friends. Fuck it. Because if you have a passion for it right now, and if you know that you could do it and you could be successful at it, and it's something that, as Dwarren said earlier, that you're passionate about because you know it's going to drive, don't let your parents stop you. Right? Again, as long as it's legal. Like we're talking legal. Okay.
Yeah, don't get singing on the corner.
Yeah,
guys.
we're not talking like drug dealing on the corner, right? We're talking like getting into a legal business, right?
Legitimate business. And we're also talking about not taking all your parents' savings to start your business. It's about being a self-starter and doing it yourself.
Started. Yeah, exactly. But you can, one, feel comfortable to talk to them. But two, don't let their lack of motivation and drive to grow and be a better version, to do something for themselves, stop you from wanting to do that. Right? I early on had to learn that lesson because I did it. I listened to other people way too much. And I let it, and that's where I think it came where, when we talk about like my early 20s, I think that's where it impacted my kind of road forward from that point. Was I let so many people other kind of drive me and say, oh, we don't like that decision for you, don't do it. And we talked about this the other day. My biggest one was I wanted to move away. I wanted to be out of Ohio, and I let everybody else's decision or feelings about it lead to my decision to still be here. Right now, granted, you're here, so I'm happy with that. But still, it's so to your friends, the biggest thing I think support that you could give to them in this moment, right, would just be like, who cares? What do we do? Let's just start. Let's do it. Right. Or tell them, if you're passionate about it, just do it. Just get started and prove your parents wrong. Because, and we'll end it with this. Everybody is so quick. It's so easy to have doubt when somebody is trying to do something and trying to build something. It's so easy to say, oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Because what happens, right? They're right 99% of the time. Because people are going to fail. 82% of businesses fail because of cash flow. And what all the people do that say, they're going to come into here. I told you shouldn't do that. You should have just took a job because they're safe. They don't have that same mindset, that same motivation, right? But the moment you become a success, what do they tell you? I knew you were going to do it. No. And this is the biggest thing. This is what I'm holding true in my life. If you did not support me when I was going through everything, or when I was having my struggles and I was in the valley, and now I'm on a peak, not the peak, but a peak on the way up, I don't want your support. Right? Thank you for saying it, but I guarantee you probably said something 10 times more about how you thought it was going to fail. Or when you saw that there was a struggle, you probably said, oh, see, I told you so. Everybody's so quick to say, I told you so, because it's their default. They don't know any better. They're in an employee mindset. So I guess the question that I would have before we jump off is, do you know anything about their parents? Are the parents business owners themselves, or are the parents like just working in a regular job that are saying this to them? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure. My one friend I know, his parents are just a regular job.
Yeah, and that's so they don't have that mindset. They're worker bees. They're, hey, give me my paycheck and I'll just make everything work paycheck to paycheck almost.
Playing the safe game, and that's
Playing
fine.
safe, right?
Some people do that. Not everyone understands an entrepreneurial mindset. Not everyone has that level of risk. A lot of people have risk aversion when it comes to business. And one thing you're going to find yourself, whether it's your parents or your friends, who you surround yourself with is going to mirror a lot of what you do. So start surrounding yourself with people who are of a like-minded nature, who are going to want to do a business set up themselves. Find a startup community and get involved in that. Start turning up, and you'll find yourself surrounding yourself with enough people to help with that, lift you up as well. And that's really important. Find your community. Find your people that you can be lifted up by to help you. Because, if your parents are not supportive, well, find someone who is supportive, someone who is going to help you. And
we're not saying, we're not saying like cut your parents off. You know what I mean?
No.
But the idea is like, don't let their negativity about it drive you, right? So I love what Doran's saying. You want to eventually be in business. So these friends that you're talking to right now, and you're probably going to run into more of them in college, like those are going to be the people that you want to consistently talk to about business. Because if you take that and you go to your family that is not business minded, they're not entrepreneurial, and you try to tell them about struggles in business, they're going to be like, well, you can just go get a job, and they're not going to understand that. And so you have to have that group. That's why, Dwarn and I, these conversations, we were having them for years before we actually started the podcast, because we are kind of like I would call ourselves our support people, right? Is that we have these conversations on a regular basis. And there's people around me that I know are not entrepreneurial, and they don't understand it. And so you have to have that group, and you just realize you're not going to bring up business with the people that don't understand it, because when they do say something, it's just going to be, well, you could just go do this, or we just dove into that a lot deeper than I thought we were going to, right?
Yeah, it's not even like it's the same thing with sport. You go to someone who doesn't understand sports or who's not interested in sport, they're going to be the same. You start talking sport, and it's going to glaze over. And go, wouldn't you rather sleep in those days? No, I like what I do. I want to, because I want to achieve what I want to achieve in life. It's the same sort of mentality. I mean, and this is going to happen in life throughout everything. There's going to be doubters. There's going to be people who will have a difference of opinion and not always share the same opinion of you. And you should listen to some of the things that people say, but don't let it affect you and your outcome, or use it as fuel to drive yourself.
Yeah, prove them wrong.
Yeah, prove them wrong. Prove them wrong, and prove that you were on the right path. And then don't look back. It's not a case of telling them that you were right. It's just a case of going, well, you know what? They were just part of my journey to get where I want to be. This is where I am now, and they were part of that journey, even if it wasn't a positive part of the journey.
Right. Yep. Well, so that's a good one, but go ahead.
It's kind of like you're talking about, like playing it safe. Like you play like the board game Life. Like there's like the safe path and there's the risky path.
Mm-hmm.
If you take the safe path, when the time you get to the end, you get to like that regular little like retirement home. If you take the risky path, you're guaranteed to get that tiny one. But if you actually do good in that harder path, you get the higher up one.
Mm-hmm.
One in the smaller one, all you can get is that small, safe retirement home.
Right. No, and that's a good point. And on the risky path, just like in life, right, there's a lot of moments where could potentially be failure. Mm-hmm. But what about that game of life pertains to real life, right? Is that you may hit a spot where you fail, but then what's after it?
Thing that you can land on in that risky path,
right?
Which then you obviously lose all your money,
right?
And you're going to earn it back up.
But then it keeps going, right? The path keeps going, because then you have a chance to earn it back. And as you said, you have a chance to even earn even more, even though you hit that risky, piece where you went bankrupt. But on the safe path, maybe there isn't any bankruptcy, but you still lose or you don't gain nearly as much.
You just stay the same level.
Mm-hmm.
But even with like the ups and downs, like a roller coaster of the risky path, you're guaranteed that lower level one, but then you also have the chance of getting that higher level
Right.
one.
And this is where we'll end it, because we're already at an hour and 15, but great conversation, is that as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, you always have the fallback of, well, I'll just go get a job. So it's always there, which gets you to the safe home at the end. Like if you do fail and you decide, like, you tried it 10 times and maybe nothing worked out, all right, maybe I'll use some of my skills and I'll go work in a job, and then I'll get to the regular retirement home. Maybe it's not, but
Yeah,
you never know until you go down that path. And that's the biggest thing that we'll leave you with today. So with that, Dwarren, thanks for joining me. JJ, thanks for jumping on. Look forward to having you back on next week. Hopefully we didn't embarrass you too much or put you on the spot too much. And you learned a couple things or two. And you too, if you're here, we love you. Thank you for joining us again at Triumph Business Solutions. We're on a mission to impact 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. Dwarren, I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about maybe next week or whatever, after you do your 10-hour working sessions over Easter break. We'll hear more about what you got going on. And then for those of you who missed it earlier, are interested in taking part of the beta in our Triumph Intelligence platform, it's got over 20 tools. We're adding to it on a regular basis for you to train it on yourself, your business, and then have all the support, all the documents, creation, the information that you need in order to help grow your business. So interested in that, go to that link and we'll drop it in the comments down below as well. But with that, we love you. Thank you for watching. If there's one or two things that you found from today's episode, please share it. Do all that fun algorithmic stuff, liking, subscribing, commenting down below if you have any questions. And with that, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And for those of you that celebrate, have a great Easter this weekend. We'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Take care, everyone. Thanks.
See you later.